What's going on, guys? This is Miasin, and unless you've been living under a rock and your name is Patrick, you would know that yesterday the BANLIST dropped and a lot happened, so a lot of older decks got destroyed and some other decks are now playable out of nowhere, meaning that it is now time for me to make another top 10 best decks of the upcoming format video. But before we get into any of this, make sure you like and subscribe, and also check me out on Twitch and Instagram, and with that being said, let's jump right into it. Alright, so I'll give the number 10 spot to Sky Striker. I think the deck is really good when it doesn't brick. That's the big if, right? If it doesn't brick, and the deck unfortunately bricks quite a lot. But Imperial Order is now banned, so a little less variance against Sky Striker, which is definitely a positive thing. But I mean, now that you have one less copy of Fusion Destiny, it's also a little bit of a nerf at the same time, because I think the deck really wants to play with Fusion Destiny package. I don't know, you're gonna start drawing the bricks a little more often. You have 2 bricks for 2 fusion spells, and if you make Vertia Anaconda, you might not be able to make Shizuku with it at the same time every single time, so I don't know. There are still a few issues with the deck, but again, when it works, it works. Now, number 9 is almost the exact opposite, because this deck is really consistent, but it's not powerful enough. And I want to say Salamangreat is probably that number 9 spot, because it got 1 additional copy of Circle, but unfortunately, even when you go first in that deck, sometimes you just don't make enough negates, so people can break your board and kill you. So that's an issue that I have with Salamangreat, but again, when the deck draws the nuts, it's unbeatable. You can make Dweller, Roar Rage, recycle back your traps and your Ash every single turn, so when you get your ball rolling in the deck, it's probably one of the best control decks in the entire game. Now, number 8 is a pretty interesting one, because I'm not really going to give it to one specific deck, but rather a lot of different decks that share one common engine. And of course, that engine is TRI-BRIGADE, so pretty much any deck that plays with TRI-BRIGADE cards, with maybe the Melfi engine or not, with the Lyrilusk engine, or with DPE, or with Dogmatica, whatever. Honestly, Lyrilusk TRI-BRIGADE got a gigantic nerf with Recital Starling to 1 and Simorgh Link to 0, because now you can't really get that Omni Negate very easily, and you're missing a second search, which means that Utopic Draco Future is now very neggy if you want to go for it, so definitely a big problem for the deck. Now, number 7 might be BEETROOPERs. I'm not 100% sure how good this deck is, but I've heard it was really good in the right hands, so if you're a really good player, I probably recommend this deck for you, because it has a lot of 1-card starters, can play a lot of hand shops, can play whatever DPE, of course, with Artifact Scythe and all the good stuff, so yeah, very dangerous deck. A lot of people don't know what the cards do, so if you like surprise wins, this deck is definitely made for you. And I think we can mostly agree that Virtual World deserves the number 6 spot, because it got 1 extra copy of Emergency Teleport and 2 extra copies of Scale Drain, which is very good in the deck because all the monster effects of the Virtual Worlds, they all resolve in the hand, so not on the field, meaning that you're never really losing to your own Scale Drain, which is pretty freaking cool, so you can pretty much go Chuche control with recursion and searching with the Virtual World monsters, and that's already a good win condition. Issue is that Desires went from 3 to 1, which forces you to play Prosperity to replace the lost consistency. The deck is really similar to Sky Strikers, as in it's really good when it works, but when it doesn't do anything. Alright, this is where we enter the danger zone. Number 5 is Weakened Tenyi Sword Soul. With no Protos, this deck no longer insta-wins pretty much any game going first, because you no longer have anything that is lingering, meaning that if you get hit by Dark Ruler or Forbidden Drop, you're pretty much screwed because you're relying on actual negates. Obviously, you can have the Trap card, but you still lose to like Mystic Mine and some other annoying cards. Little problem that I have with Tenyi Sword Soul, because it's not like before. It's still a really good deck because it is very balanced to go first and second, but when you go first, you're pretty much just relying on making negates that you can count, and sometimes it just doesn't work at all, and your opponent can break your board. That happened multiple times when I played the deck and when I played against the deck. The negates, they do have weaknesses, obviously. If you have something like Chijiao and Blackout, yeah, sure, you have 2 interruptions, but if you get Kaijut, for example, you lose 2 interruptions in 1 shot. Now, this is very debatable because this deck might be way better than I think it is, but I think Shadala Invoke Dogmatica DPE probably takes number 4 or top 3 best decks, because the other decks got nerfed way more than this one did, with only Nadir Servant going from 3 to 2, which changes literally nothing. Of course, Chao Feng still exists, so you still have a tough time going second against Sword Soul Tenyi. Unless you drew Tikaboo, then you're fine. Number 3 is a deck that doesn't even do well right now, and that's Flundereeze, but it's going to be very good once we get the Quick Play spell card, because you're going to have so much consistency, you can search either another monster or a field spell, which is actually massive because with the field spell, you can chain block, play around hand traps, etc. And the end board of Flunderies, even though it's not a combo deck, is still enough to destroy pretty much everyone. I mean, it's a big floodgate with a barrier statue, and you can normal summon again on your opponent's turn and tribute for Ryza or Apex Avion, whatever. So yeah, the deck is absolutely terrifying, and I can see Flunderies being definitely in the top 3 best decks next format. Another thing that I want to say about Flunderies is that if people always try to go for the Artifact Scythe combo against you, you're just not going to lose to any of those decks because your deck doesn't special summon at all, so it's literally free real estate. Okay, so people might disagree with this, but I think Eldritch is the second best deck in the game for the upcoming format because Skill Drain of 3 is very annoying. This deck is literally the Cliffort of this format, I want to say. Very similar to when we had like Cliffort, Shaddoll, Burning Abyss, whatever, and maybe Necroz. So yeah, Eldritch is kind of like the same thing, but yeah, like 6 or whatever, 7 years later. So yeah, plays a lot of trap cards, very aggressive, and it's not like a super stun or control-y slow-paced deck because if you can summon to Eldritch the Golden Lord, that's already like freaking 8,000 damage already because attack for a lot and then you can go Cowboy for game in main phase 2 with Gustav Max, or you go Gustav first and then Juggernaut Lebe, attack a lot of monsters your opponent controls, and it's a big boy with 6,000 attack, so very scary card. And because of that, I think Eldritch is definitely going to be the number 2 best deck for this upcoming format. Last and definitely not least, I want to say Phantom Knight probably has it either with or without the Brave Token engine. I want to say, ironically, I think in the TCG, maybe without the Brave Token engine might be a little better because you don't really have to play those weird bricks or something like that. You can play a lot of extenders and you don't really lose to Max C anyway, so you don't really have to have anti-hand trap cards that hard because no hand trap is like an insta win against Phantom Knight. And sure, Lancia is very, very good, that's true, but it's not like you would cry because you can still make Verte into Phoenix Enforcer, so Phantom Knight dodging BANLIST like there's no tomorrow, whereas Drytron and the other decks like Lyrilusk are getting absolutely digged down. But yeah, the deck is super resilient, can play through a lot of hand traps, and can also abuse Artifact Dagda in order to use Artifact Scythe and Lancia, which is really good against Flunderies. Anyways, that's pretty much it for my top 10 video. Let me know what you guys actually think in the comment section below of which decks do you think are the best, and that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.